Thanks a lot, Wolfgang. Yeah, so Wolfgang works at OSI. Actually, he does more than working there. And yeah, topic is job and service management for install and construction. Wolfgang, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks for having me. This has been a really interesting couple of years, as everybody knows, but we were able to, even aside from all that restriction that we had, we were able to run some interesting projects. And I wanted to summarize what we learned here in job service management for install and construction, and share some of the insights and what is really job services management and construction. So the topics that I have in the presentation today are about the scope, what the scope of service management in construction is all about, the requirements, then what is covered in Odoo, what is covered by the OCA, where are the gaps, and maybe what can we do to fill the gaps in the future. And OCA will, in my vision, play a fundamental part of that, filling the gap. And then I have some examples. And if anybody is interested, I can also talk about implementation steps, but I think most of us probably know those well, so that's an optional point at the bottom here. But let me go through and explain what is actually construction as we define it for services. So most of you know building construction and other things, but there's actually a lot more in construction than just buildings and roads and other things. It is, first of all, the residential part, the buildings that we live in, and that spans multiple construction areas like flooring and wiring, heating and air, and all of these building materials that build the actual property. And then we have on the flip side, and that's you see this little water coming down from the ceiling there, that is the commercial building, and that is fire protection, security, but also, of course, heating and air and other things. So there's some commonality, but usually very different size, different setup. And what we don't always see is the industrial equipment construction. So a lot of heavy equipment that goes in, or specialized equipment where people have to do installs to get machinery ready, and that requires construction and readiness of the environment. And then we have other infrastructure like telco, networking, utilities, where we have to build up a tower or put pipes in the ground, and so many different jobs. And this is just the surface here, but I use these examples because we have actually real projects in each one of those areas that we gained experience in, and they seem to be very suitable for the Odoo management side of things. And when we look at it more closely, all the construction jobs can be broken down into two main phases. There's the pre-construction, where you do all your planning, etc., and then there's the project management, where you execute the actual project and you really monitor all the costs, etc. I have some slides to break this down a little bit more. So here on the job service management side in construction, we have the pre-construction phase with first the cost estimates. People spend a lot of time in cost estimates because a lot of construction is extensive. Lots of pieces, parts, and I show you some of these estimation spreadsheets towards the end of the presentation. And then we, of course, have the whole scheduling things out, planning things out, and the designs that need to be considered. And often there are permits and licenses that need to be procured to be allowed to actually build something. There's a lot of government regulations, environmental regulations. Sometimes there's special materials that require special handling. For instance, in the fire protection area, people use explosives, and they use explosives because in some commercial buildings, there's this big explosion that throws out gases and other things to just quench the fire. And then, of course, you have to get the property ready and have building permits and those kind of things. On the execution side, that's the project management side, we have a need throughout the entire project to communicate closely with all the team members. And that is, of course, the customer, but it's also subcontractors. Usually in construction, we use subcontractors because people cannot do a job just by themselves, usually. And then we have all these consultants and other people that need to be considered. So there is a lot of communication. And then there is the need to keep on planning, assigning, and rescheduling work that needs to be done, and also adjust throughout the life cycle of the project. There's a lot of change management also necessary in these projects. And then we have the actual monitoring of stuff. Is stuff done properly? And there's field services involved to go out and make sure there are quality checks on the workers. And then there's also just the cost side of things to keep track of cost, the cost accounting. And it's more extensive in construction projects as maybe on just a regular manufacturing project. And throughout this whole process, we have to document this well and have the right documents at our hands for the right phases of our projects. So you can see there's a lot of project management, but there's also a lot of accounting and material handling and all of these things that Odoo does well. So some of the requirements that are particular for construction job management are maybe not so particular for all of us because we're used to it. CRM and sales is something that starts. I mean, they also, of course, want to get their leads and sell it properly. But before they can actually do a proper sales quote, they need a job cost estimation. And that's a key element. That's different. The job cost estimation is more extensive than in usual sales. And the sales tools that we have in Odoo are not sufficient at the level of detail that is needed for job cost estimation. And contract management is another thing that is needed because there are many contracts, many elements of a construction job that has a lot of paperwork, and that paperwork needs to be tracked with subcontractors and building owners and whoever needs to be involved. And then there's the project and work order management. I threw this together because it's related, but it's also field services as part of the work order management and sending out crews to do the work, and then the quality control, the inspections, etc. Subcontractor management is a critical element overall, and that's where, as you can see on some of the next slides, where we see a lot of gaps. Subcontractor management is very, very important to not just have the contractual side and know the cost through vendor billing and etc., but also see who does what where and manage them almost like your own crews that you send out. And that's a key element of construction. The cost tracking for labor, material, equipment, and subcontractors, that's for the most part done well in Odoo, but there is a specific part where we differ in construction, and that is the work in progress or construction in progress revenue recognition and billing. And it's not just milestones or not just percent complete, as we know from the core elements in Odoo. It goes a little bit deeper. And there are additional tools that every one of our projects that we have ran over the last few years has required us to put in. So I mentioned change management already, but I wanted to put it in because it is a constant change in construction. Things just don't go as planned, and you have to have tools to manage that as well. So when I look at what is covered in Odoo, and this is now kind of an assessment of what is available to us and where are the gaps. So CRM and sales are, I think, very sufficient for most construction and job costs, job construction services. But the project and work order management that is covered in Odoo has one gap that I will point out in a sec here, but overall there is good tools for task management and cost tracking for labor, material, equipment, subcontractors. So Odoo does a good job in those things. And just as a side note, just exciting to see what's coming up, what came up in the 15 release with projects and the ability to actually now schedule work out with dependencies between tasks, have the linkage, the predecessors. That actually makes a big difference also here in construction. The project management is, I think, an excellent step forward in core Odoo. And then we have additional tools in OCA. And what is covered in OCA that we're using frequently is the contract management. And there's two main versions in contract management that may fit more than the other. That's agreements and contracts. And the contracts is what we use in a lot of cases now, because it allows us to tie it nicely to sale orders, and we even have repeating sale orders that can be generated out of contracts, which is great. And then we have the advanced work order management. This is a bit more detailed than some of the field service management core tools. So we call it Open FSM because it's OCA FSM, just not to be confused with core FSM. But the Open FSM is, it has 50 different modules. And, if anybody's interested, we can go into details which one of those are actually useful for construction. But that's probably a different presentation altogether. So the subcontractor management is very interesting, because if I have a lot of subcontractors and companies that we're working with, they have 200 or more subcontractors that they can call on. So they're not always used, but on a given day, they may use maybe 12 crews. And if I have 12 crews and I have 200 potential crews that I could pick from, then each one of those crews needs to have some access to the information in Odoo, which makes it important to use some portal type access or some mobile access. And that's the big gap that we're seeing right now in core Odoo. And we're thinking about taking some of the development that we have done and seeing if we can make it available to the OCA in version 15, which means that with the version 15 migration that's ongoing, we'd be able to actually have people download, have people download a mobile app that's freely available. That's on Android. iOS is a bit more difficult, but yes, we have iOS and Android support. And then let that be handled through the OpenFSM modules and portal users. And maybe it's even going to drive some new user type in core Odoo, because we need the ability to not use regular users, but use like a light user, but a light user that has, that can be assigned work, that can be scheduled, but they don't need access to all the Odoo functions. They just need to know, okay, here's your work, boom, get it on their mobile. That's really what I'm talking about with the subcontractor management. So the next slide is probably the most critical one for all of us that are involved in these kind of jobs, and that is what is missing. And the key part I mentioned already is the job cost estimation. There are some third-party modules that are available, and they all require customization, and they're really not fitting very well. We probably use 10% of one module that we purchase for a customer. And it would be really a good idea to, now that we have more knowledge in many different projects, to take the community and come up with a scope of what that should be and build this out in OCA. I think it's the right thing to do because we see Odoo grow. We see Odoo being used in these more complex areas like construction. And I think we need to have a job cost estimation tool in OCA that is available to the community. I think that's the right way to grow. And that's on our list of items we would like to drive, and hopefully maybe others are interested in helping us with their experience, because every company has only that many customers, and combined we are a team that can make a bigger difference with more insight. So work construction in progress revenue, this is a very specific one, and for some that may be a little bit vague what's meant here, but the key thing is that when I have big projects, I need to have a way to recognize revenue based on the work extended, based on the actual cost. So what's happening is, if I know I have a $100,000 project and my cost on the project is $50,000, then if I have $50,000 cost and I have $5,000 extended, then that would be 10%. So now I can do revenue recognition of 10% on the overall revenue. So I have now $10,000 of revenue. And that's a key thing in both work and construction progress billing and recognition. So we had this now on several different projects where they're all slightly different based on customer requirements, but it's time to bring this all together and actually move that into a common module that is available and configurable in OCA. So I think this is also one of those things where the community can really make a difference. And additional tools in construction that are critical is the forecasting, the reporting. I need to forecast how many workers do I need, where do I need them, and the annual and quarterly forecasting and reporting is specific, and it goes a little bit beyond what we have in Odoo. So there were lots of adjustments that we had to make and create new screens and other things, and also the cost type based breakdown that's part of the construction reporting. What kind of labor am I using, subcontractor labor and so on, overtime. And then again, change management. The change management kind of that goes along with the job costing, because every time I have an initial job cost, make changes throughout the project because somebody finds out, I need to do more substance on that foundation. We didn't know that before, so they have to buy more material, have more labor to build this out, and now we have a re-estimation process, and that means I need to have an adjustment to my job cost estimation, and then go through the change management and send out an update on a sale order, which is core again and will work well. But that initial estimation process is really what we're seeing as a gap. So, so that's really the gaps on a high level, and there's many more, but those are the ones that we frequently run into. I have some examples. So I showed you the pictures of these different residential areas, and these are actually some of the companies that we're working with. And those companies are in different areas, as you can see: fire protection, commercial, multi-dwelling, internet infrastructure. This is getting the internet and routers and fiber optics out to hotels or to large dorms for universities. And then you have home entertainment systems in the residential areas, flooring installations, and industrial equipment. These are just some examples here. There are many more, and you have your own. So we know it's a real market for Odoo and for us as supporters in the community and customers that really need this, right? So we want to have a solution that is not just customized every single time. So here's an example. I just want to get this scope out there. This is a job estimation real spreadsheet that is used by one of our customers. And you can see the line items. This is, I make this purposefully small because nobody wants to share their data here, but it's really just an example of how many different line items these guys are dealing with. And this all makes it in one sale order. And you can say, yeah, I can manage that in a sale order, but it's cumbersome because there's many different cost calculations that update on a regular basis for these changes. And you need a tool outside of the sale order to the quotation tool to do that. And there's hundreds of parts and freight costs and labor items and subcontractor costs and permits and overtime and travel that feed into the spreadsheet. And what it looks like in Odoo is something like this. This is an example based on, as a foundation for this. We actually had a third-party tool, and so we're using here material, labor, miscellaneous, contractor, project financials, and approvals. This is basically an example of a cost spreadsheet for just materials, and then you can see the sum at the bottom here, where it sums up how much is my labor, my material, my subcontractor, and I can compare that with the different actuals and the planned. So this is one example, and there's others here too. And I have another slide that I wanted to pull up, and that is the project financial overview for change management. So you can see there's an original, and then there's a revised estimate. Now in this case they're the same, so no revision has happened, but you can see that all the fields are available to do these kind of costing. And then you recognize cost and you recognize revenue and sum this up again. This is another part of job costing and change. Yeah, and that brings me to the end of the presentation and questions and hopefully answers. So I'm looking at the forum here for us on the Track 1 webinar, where I'm logged into to our communication tool here, Discord. So questions?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much, Wolfgang, for this very, very informative session. Yes, we do have a couple of questions and points from Alexander. So the first one, the first point is a job cost estimation, where this is a very common need that goes beyond construction, of course, and there is indeed a shared need. And the second point, which is actually a question, where when you speak of billing, are you speaking of supplier bills or customer invoicing? Common need, at least in France, is supporting warranty provisions. The subcontractor presents a bill of 10K, but you only pay 95% of it, and the provision is 5% that will be paid after completion of the project. He's not sure how it works same way in other countries though. So
yeah, absolutely right. So the first question, let's go with the first question from Alexander. That was, can you repeat Alexander's, because I'm thinking about the second right now.
Okay, the first one
I was just confirming that this is a common need. I mean, even in software projects, you want to
you're right.
estimate your costs before making,
absolutely,
and we need something.
You're absolutely right. So it's even bigger than construction, and construction is already a pretty big industry. So yes, great comment. Thank you. And then the other question was from the French example. There is actually a withhold, or there's this I have 5% of the project that basically gets paid after a successful inspection and completion. That's a very, very common model. So thank you for bringing that up, actually, because it's part of the whole process billing is to have these withholds, to have this dedicated sum that's sitting there, almost like an insurance to the company that's requesting the work, that you do and complete everything at the end of this. You get the last final payment lump sum, and that's regardless of what you what your cost is. You just basically have to wait, and they can hold you hostage with that last payment. That's a good point, and that's also part of the whole construction billing cycle. There's these withholds. Yes, it should be a standard in this future envisioned OCA module to manage that easily. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, and to add to that part, Wolfgang, that it's called retention in this kind of cases where they do withhold the percentage of that amount that gets clear after the completion of whole project. So it's there, yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so the again comment from Alexander saying that and account move lines are sometimes tricky to get right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Any
Good
comments
point
there, Wolfgang?
Yeah. I mean, we all have challenges to get it right based on requirements and multiple requirements in all areas. And that's kind of the challenge that we're all facing as translating business needs into technology. I think it's a generally true statement. Was there something specific that?
No, if I may take the mic, because well, I can.
Yes,
well,
you can.
I think if we are to design something inside the OCA, we need to have the proper entry point planned for localizations, because these things are full of local regulations, and having something which works in one country doesn't guarantee that you are able to make it work even with heavy tweaking in another country.
Yeah, and so my thought on this is very simple. It is that we need input from these other countries to do it right in the other countries. And we have seen this in Odoo with accounting. How long has it taken just Odoo to get it right in accounting over the years in these different countries with all the different requirements? It's very hard for one organization to know all of this. And we in our company, we don't know all of this either, right? So we have to start somewhere, and we can do a good job in one market. Let's say for the US, we're really knowledgeable about the US, but others can hopefully help us how it is in France and Brazil, and I don't know where all this is going to be deployed. But we need to do this as a community, and let's say if we design it in a way that these country-specific rules can be embedded, then that's a good design, because it's almost like, okay, here's another localized package that you can plug in. But the initial project is probably going to be one that's focused on a large market where some people spend a lot of effort, and it could be multiple markets, and it's not going to cover the whole world. And that's also good, because if we have this idea that we have to cover everything at once, we have analysis paralysis, and we cannot get anything done.
Yeah, that's fine.
So it's a bit of an evolvement. It's going to go in iterations, and we're not going to get it right for everyone in the first place. But I mean, if we had that ambition to get it right, then again, you don't get anything done.
The good thing about the OCA and open source is that we can refactor an existing project or code base and insert the missing hooks, or extract bits which turn out to be local specific, but the authors were not aware of that.
Yeah. Well, so I think for me, the vision that I have here is to come up with a good requirements sheet. As we always have that in OCA. Of course, we put down the requirements before we start. But really reach out to anybody that is interested in this to please participate so that we can see where the hooks need to be, because I don't know that we all know where the hooks need to be to do that kind of specialization.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges we have in the OCA is to have different persons having to work on the same topic at about the same time. Synchronization is really a challenge.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can see this. Yeah. Well, those are really great questions. So appreciate that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, we have one more. Where is the best place to discuss things around field services from Mike?
There is an OCA. We have the project field services. So if you go and just go to GitHub/OCA and search for field services, you'll find the repo for field services. There's a discussion forum there where you can enter issues and other things like everywhere. And actually, Sandeep is one of the moderators there, so he can help you.
Yes, I can definitely help you there. Well, I think we are on right time. Any last comment, Wolfgang? And we don't have further questions from anyone. So,
well, my only last comment is that there are a number of sponsors that we want to recognize, and that goes, of course, beyond our own company. And it's amazing how the community really supports each other. So, thank you, everybody, for sponsoring. This is really critical. Without OCA, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing with our customers every day.
Well, that's the core. Thank you. And it's always pleasure to meet you all. This time even it's a virtual, but still feels great. Back to Alexander, or someone wants to close the day today, or how you wants to.
Sorry, I'm off. Hello? Yep.
Yes.
I don't think we have a closing talk scheduled today.
Okay.
But I wanted to thank everyone for, well, first being there, because that was a great day. I think we had lots of very interesting talks. And we will be meeting back at 10 to 9 UTC +2. So I'll let you do your own time conversions, depending on where you are standing right now, tomorrow morning. Thanks, Sandeep. Thanks, Wolfgang, for this super interesting talk. And yeah, can probably discuss the VAT accounting on warranty withdrawals at some other points.
Yeah.
Yep. So thanks, everyone. I had a really great day with all of you. So see you on Discord and see you tomorrow on Zoom.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
day. Bye-bye.
Bye.